Good evening, dear listeners. Tonight, we delve into the shadows, where strings are pulled and fate is twisted. Imagine being stripped of your free will, a mere marionette in the hands of a malevolent puppeteer. This is the story of one such man, a man controlled by an unseen force, driven to unspeakable deeds. But who is the true villain? The puppet, or the puppet master? Stay tuned as we unravel the chilling tale of the puppet master. The first sense Matthew felt upon waking was the suffocating weight of dread. It was an oppressive, inescapable feeling, as if something unseen loomed just beyond the veil of his consciousness. He tried to reach out, to rub the sleep from his eyes, but his arm wouldn't move. Panic hit him as he struggled to command his own body. He could see, hear, and feel, but he had no control. His limbs, as though possessed by an unseen force, moved with a will of their own. Matthew's day began as if on autopilot. His legs swung out of bed, his feet hitting the cold floor. He shuffled to the bathroom, mechanically brushing his teeth, shaving, and dressing, while his mind screamed against the forced motions. But his body did not respond. As he left his apartment, he noticed small, sinister changes. He bypassed his usual route to work, and instead Matthew found himself at a crowded train station during rush hour. His body forces him onto the platform, standing dangerously close to the edge. He sees a mother standing close to him, holding her child's hand. As the train approaches, Matthew lunges forward, his body aiming to shove the mother onto the tracks. At the last second, he stumbles. Matthew gets a strange feeling that something is playing with him, using him as its toy or some kind of puppet. The mother leaves unharmed but shaken. Throughout the day, Matthew performed increasingly disturbing acts, but by midday, the acts turned darker. He found himself breaking into a house, standing over a sleeping family with the crowbar in his hand. His heart pounded in terror as his arms raised the weapon. At the last second, a shift in the air stopped him. The family stirred, oblivious to the horror that had nearly unfolded. His body turned and left, but the threat of what could have been lingered like a dark cloud. By evening, Matthew was exhausted, both mentally and physically, but his body moved with relentless purpose. He found himself in a decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of town. The flickering light of a single, dangling bulb cast eerie shadows on the walls. As he stood in the center of the room, his limbs suddenly went slack. He collapsed to the floor, gasping as control returned to him. For a brief moment, he felt the bliss of freedom. Then he heard it, a slow, deliberate clapping echoing through the cavernous space. "Bravo," a voice drawled from the darkness. "You performed beautifully." Matthew's blood turned to ice. "Who's there?" he croaked, his voice hoarse. From the shadows emerged a tall, gaunt figure, draped in a tattered cloak. Its face was obscured by a grotesque mask, a twisted mockery of a smiling visage. "I am the puppet master," it said, bowing mockingly. "And you, Matthew, are my finest creation." Matthew tried to scramble to his feet, but his body refused to obey. The puppet master lifted a gloved hand, and Matthew felt his limbs pulled upward as if by invisible strings. Why are you doing this?" Matthew stammered, his voice trembling. The puppet master's mask tilted slightly. "Why does an artist paint? Why does a musician compose? Because it is my nature. You, my dear Matthew, are a canvas for my art. And tonight, we shall create a masterpiece." As the puppet master spoke, Matthew's body stood up and began to move. Each step mechanical and deliberate. He was marched out of the warehouse and onto the desolate streets. The night swallowed him whole as he was led to a quiet suburban neighborhood. The puppet master's voice echoed in his mind, cold and commanding. "This is where it ends. One final performance." Matthew's body crept toward a house, the lights within casting warm, inviting glows onto the front lawn. He recognized it instantly. It was his childhood home. "No," Matthew screamed internally. "Please, not here." But his pleas went unheard. His hands, once gentle and kind, now gripped the crowbar tightly as he approached the front door. It swung open with a creak, revealing the figures of his parents, peacefully seated in the living room, unaware of the nightmare about to unfold. Tears streamed down Matthew's face as he fought with every ounce of strength to regain control. His body moved closer, step by agonizing step, the crowbar raised high. "Stop it," he begged. "I don't want to do this." But the puppet master's laughter was his only answer. In a final, desperate act, Matthew summoned all his will, focusing on the bond that connected him to the puppet master. He visualized the invisible strings that held him captive, imagining them fraying, snapping one by one. The crowbar froze mid-swing. The puppet master hissed, "You resist," its voice sharp with surprise. How quaint. Matthew felt a surge of strength. "I won't let you control me anymore." With a primal scream, he broke free. The crowbar clattered to the floor, and Matthew collapsed beside it, gasping for air. The puppet master stood in the doorway, silent and still. It said, "Impressive, but remember, you can never cut all the strings." Then, the figure vanished, leaving Matthew alone with his parents, and leaving Matthew's mind quiet once again. In the days that followed, Matthew tried to return to a normal life. But the scars of the puppet master's control remained. Every time Matthew looked in the mirror, he saw the faint outline of invisible strings etched into his skin. A chilling reminder of the horrors he had endured. And at night, as he drifted to sleep, he could still hear the puppet master's voice whispering in the darkness, "One day, the strings will pull again." And so, the strings are cut, the final act complete. Our puppet, once bound by the will of another, now stands alone. But the question lingers, was he ever truly free? Or do we all dance to unseen forces? Thank you for joining us on this dark journey into the mind and the machinations of the puppet master. Now keep a watchful eye on the shadows, and question who, or what, might be pulling your strings. So join us again, if you dare, when we return with more stories to keep you awake. Until then, sleep tight and sweet dreams. And try not to let the darkness creep in. We'll be waiting for you till next time, right here on Sinister Radio.